If you want to create impact, if you think that you're a thought leader in your space, if you want to disrupt an industry, you've got to do more than just say it. And when we're not reaching our goal, it weighs you down. It creates this emotional illusion in your mind that actually you're not good at. But if you focus on what you are good at and make that your super strength and make sure that that is the one that stands you out from the crowd, that can take you very far.
Welcome to the B2B Experience, brought to you by Big Light, one of Europe's leading experience design agencies. In this podcast series, we speak to digital pioneers in B2B and tell real stories of breaking down barriers and delivering change. My name's Steve Borges, and my guest today is Abdul Khaled, Digital Director of Eon Next. So Abdul, interesting career, I should say, so far, really. Becoming ever more influential. A few years ago, you were in the top 100. Then you made it to top 50. And now you're one of the top 35 most influential CX leaders. So who knows where you're going to be next year, I suppose. You starting out as contract PM. How did it all come about? Tell me about it.
Well, I think as with most people when they start their careers, you sort of just fall into something, right? You don't necessarily. It's very rare people that have everything sort of planned out. I'm one of those that there's never had anything planned out. I still don't have planned for the next 5 years, let's just say, right? Which some people find incredible, but I think it's all about trying to evolve and learn and grow organically and have a belief system in my head that if you turn up well, do the job to the best of your ability, those opportunities will naturally come. And I think that was the whole idea behind I just sprung into contracting. And the world of contracting, for anyone that's been familiar with it, is you're nowhere permanent. It's always short weeks and it's always on to the next one. And for me, the reason I stayed in that world for so long was because it was massive growth opportunities. It was massive learning opportunities. Every contract for me was first day of school, trying to achieve the assignment that was given to you, and you have a clear end date, so last day of school, if you like. And then there's an opportunity to reflect. Did I do as well as I could have? Are there any learnings? And there's always learnings. And there's always, you come out of that contract thinking, could have done better. And I think people have that feeling in every job that they have. You do an assignment or a project in your current role, and then you think, if I had the chance to do it all over again, I would have done it so much better. But there isn't always that opportunity to do it again. In my role, there was, because I just picked up another contract, which then allowed me to take the learnings, good or bad. But I think what I took out of it was an ability to get 15, 20 years of knowledge crammed into half the time. I think when you're in an organization and you're working up through the ranks, your experience naturally is quite, limited and shoehorned into the role that you've been given. And you tend to find growth to be a little bit at slower pace because, you're only in the horizon that you know. Whereas what I was able to do was be able to take those incremental jumps from contract to contract, both in terms of responsibility, but also in terms of impact. Because I always have an idea of how I could do things better. So every contract would be able to hit the ground running. And I'd always make some mistakes. Because there'll be something that I've never encountered before, but I'll learn on that job. And then when I go into the next contract, I'm sharper, I'm wiser, I'm more aware to these ideas, and I'll be able to implement that immediately. And that, I think, allowed the acceleration of growth. Because I think it'll be fair to say that the kind of growth I've had in my career has been, it seemed to surprise me. The ability to go up the career ladder and the stages of the career has been, touch wood, very good so far, but at an accelerated rate. And I think I would owe it almost entirely to the decision to accidentally fall into the contracting world. Didn't even know what it was. And then being able to realize there's an opportunity here. And there's one or two things you can do, because you find career contractors who will just slide by a nice contract, there won't be that much pressure. And then, they're not really focusing on the opportunity where they could kind of maximize growth. But I saw it different. I saw it as an opportunity to maximize growth. So Yeah, that was the reason behind the contracting years.
Is there another side to it, which is that those who are there longer, um, uh, uh, in organizations longer, um, have to develop more of a kind of organizational management skill and the politics of it. Is that an advantage? Did you find when you went into permanent roles that that was a deficiency for you in some way, or
Yeah. So I think corporate politics was definitely a deficiency for me because I never had to deal with it. So when you're in the contract world and you come across the corporate politics, for a lack of a better word, the organizational maneuvering that you have to do, when you're in a contract world, you have the ability to not really invest emotionally into that. So it doesn't bother you. So yeah, you see things that are in your way and people being, fighting for territory and all of those things, but you don't have to navigate that. You don't have to deal with it because you have a clear mandate and you don't have to emotionally invest yourself. So I was lucky to get away with that. But it all comes back to stages of life. And I think the stage of life I was at that stage, which was early career, learning and honing my craft, I felt it was more important for me to learn and hone the craft rather than understanding how to manage an organization, how to manage upwards and all that. So I feel I was able to bring the hardest part of the job, which is the craft and the skill and really understanding how to deliver impact, bringing that to the table. And then I was able to organically learn the other aspects, which is the management. And with age and experience, you sort of naturally pick that up. So I don't think it held me back per se, but it obviously was an area that needed to be completed, if you like. And I think the natural progression then into permanent employment, investing yourself into an organization, and then understanding that it's not just having an idea. You've got to actually make sure that idea comes to life. And in order to do that, you've got to change management influence. You've got to take on some of the politics. You've got to take on some of the conflict and face that.
often when I talk to people, they talk about a role where they grew up. Was that yours with Cisco, or was it later when you were at Eon?
No, it's definitely Cisco. And I think yeah, I like the phrase growing up. And I would say it coincided with me having two kids and moving into my first home. And, these are big life milestones. And working at Cisco allowed me, facilitated me going on that journey because anyone that's had children, back to back children, and moving houses is almost as difficult as any project that you'd ever have. Um, you need to be able to have some stability, and I think that's when I realized I need to have some stability in order to grow up, as you say, personally and professionally. And Cisco allowed that to happen, which meant I needed to be invested. So I really then started to invest into some of those other parts that we talked about. Now, people management. So previously, I would have done people management, but it was project led. So it was trying to get the best out of people for a specific outcome. And now you're talking about a completely different manner of people management because now it's not just managing those people for a specific outcome for 6 to 12 months. It's managing those people so they're set up for growth for the rest of their careers. Now you're responsible for people and their growth and their next steps. So you're not having to learn and adapt to new skills. Um, and I would say that's when you probably do start growing up a little bit in that sense, because you're now starting to think much deeper about the interactions that you have with people. So in a previous world, it would be maybe quite direct relationship, quite transactional. Very much, I need this specific outcome, so let's try and get that outcome. Whereas now you've got to be a lot more considerate. If performance in your team is not where it's expected, maybe there's other things that are happening, and you need to tap into that. You need to almost become a parent at home and at work. You need to bring some of those skills into the workplace, and I think that's probably the milestone that a lot of leaders will have when they realize that actually now, yeah, for a lack of a better word, growing up is probably the best way to describe it.
Can you think of a situation or a moment when an aha moment, I suppose, when you realized that?
I think when I had to deal with personal issues that people had. right? And when I say deal, as a leader, you're not there to solve people's personal problems, but when they have issues that are impacting their work, you've got to deal with it. Um, and many times I didn't know how to deal with it, right? So never been in a situation where now someone's going through an emotionally difficult time and it's impacting their uh, contribution to work. How do you deal with it? And the obvious thing that comes to mind is, well, do you want to take some time off? You deal with it in your own time, and I'll give you that space. Sometimes it doesn't solve the issue. Sometimes just kicking the can down the road. Sometimes you got to understand things a little bit deeper. Um, so trying to get myself emotionally invested, and I think emotional intelligence was a key thing that I had to learn. Um, and I remember doing a lot of reading and studying and even just observing how other leaders operate. And there was a time where I had some managers who I wasn't quite sure what they brought to the table, because the mindset that I had at that point was all about impact and delivery and action. And so when you're not seeing that in some leaders, you're starting to question, what do they bring to the table? Um, and then you see them during crisis moments really take leadership and action. I think that's when I really understood what leadership is, actually. It's the ability to look after your people, to manage crisis, and to lead with example.
It sounds like it's taught you to have a better appreciation or a broader appreciation of what people can bring
Yeah.
to an organization.
Yep. Yeah. I always I always think everyone has a superpower, right? Um, and it's up to each individual to find what their superpower is. And I stumbled across this because I was doing a guest talk for a group of school kids, about 15, 16, and I was delivering my usual kind of approach to presentations, which probably you're familiar with from what you saw last year. Um, and usually I like a little bit of humor, and there's a little bit of sort of practical, productive knowledge, and a bit of crowd work, and it always lands well with adults. It's always landed well with adults. Didn't really with 15-year-olds, right? And I was struggling because I was seeing bland faces, and I could see that they were thinking we're wasting time, like yawns, right? Leaning each other's shoulders, looking like they were napping off. I was like, how do I connect with these kids? Um, and then something about the superpower element just came to my mind, because I know a lot of kids, when I was asking questions, they're all big Marvel superhero fans, and I thought, okay, how do I play into this theme? And I sort of went down this path, which I've tried to continue, which is what's your superpower? So Superman has his superpowers, Batman has his superpowers, and they've all got a weakness, which you'll see in the films. Um, but really, everyone kind of focuses. If you immediately think what's Spider-Man's superpower, you think of this the positive that they have rather than the weakness. And my question back to the kids was find your superpower, because your superpower is what's going to make you stand out in your careers, and it's what's going to drive you forward, right? Um, and that's the same advice I give to people in my teams and when I recruit, and now I share that same message with adults as well. We're sometimes too focused on what is the gap between where we are right now and where we need to, and that's a productive conversation to have, but it can sometimes overwhelm me. And there's a fascinating story about Novak Djokovic, which I found super fascinating, where when he started his career, his whole ambition was, I want to be number one in the world. But he was obsessed with it. So it's vision, and the power of having a vision, which is why I like not to have a 5-year plan. His vision was, I'm going to be number one in the world in the next 5 years. And he was so obsessed with it, it would impact his game, because when he would lose a point, stress and anxiety started coming in. I'm now one step, or I'm one step further away now from my goal, and he'd lose a match, and the burden would be on him. And now, another step further away from my goal. And then he started flipping that onto first principles. It's like, what do I need to do to become number one? Well, I need to be Grand Slam winner. So what do I need to do to beat around someone? I need to win tournaments. What do I need to win tournaments? I need to win matches. And it's all the way down. The first principle is I need to win a point. And that was a coping mechanism for him, because if he lost the point, he'd be able to remove all the emotional baggage and start again. Because now it's not about, I want to be world champion. It's about, I need to win the point. And if he didn't win the point, put that to a side and go for the next one. And the reason why I bring this story up in relation to your superpowers is because if you don't know what your strengths are, right? Or Djokovic knew that there was certain skill sets that he had. And if he didn't win that point, it's no problem. He'll be able to tackle the next point, whether it's his backhand or there's something in his skill set that he knows and he's confident he can win the next point. And I think we focus, if you take that example, we focus too much on the gap. And when we're not reaching our goal, it weighs you down. It creates this emotional illusion in your mind that actually you're not good enough. But if you focus on what you are good at and make that your super strength and make sure that that is the one that stands you out from the crowd, that can take you very far. And so I think, in conclusion, and I've tried to introspect myself and understand what my superpowers are. And I've always tried to make sure that those are the things that carry you through. And those are the things that you should always default back to. So when you have setbacks and you have sort of failures, default back to your superpowers, because that's what got you to the position and that's what will take you to the next place as well.
But how did it start? When did you decide to start communicating thought leadership?
So for me, I think being grounded in the experiences that I had and the people that I was talking to and seeing how it was resonating, I think that gave me the confidence to say, look, I can see issues here, right? And that's not even to say I had the solutions. I was provoking conversations to begin with, and I had some ideas, but they weren't developed. I was just provoking conversations, provoking discussions, challenging the status quo or how people are running certain things in their operations, which then allowed me to then formulate more refined ideas and solutions. And obviously what I do on the speaking circuit right now is talk about frameworks and talk about strategies and playbooks that people can take and utilize. That wasn't there from day one. Day one was provoking conversations and ideas and then dropping some of the thoughts that I had, seeing it land, and then seeing it pick up by publications and media and the stage went from a very small stage to a bigger stage and national, flying around Europe to even deliver some of these talks. So the confidence naturally organically builds up there. But I think that the first point is, as with anything in life, is contribute, be part of the discussion and conversation and start, and then see where it takes you.
So have that confidence in your point of view. In your particular case, it's almost everywhere you were, you had an external perspective.
Yeah.
And that perspective was from many places rather than just the last place you are at, and contribute. And so that can be difficult for people. But it sounds like when you started to contribute, that was to largely an internal audience within the organizations you're working. At what point, what happened exactly? Tell me what happened the first time you turned from the internal audience to the broader external audience with your point of view.
So I had been going to quite a few conferences. I'd also been, podcasts was, in the 2010s, just suddenly, exploded. A lot of material and content out there. And you have this sort of honeymoon phase, if you like, when you're starting to think strategically about things. You have this honeymoon phase where all these ideas kind of just inspirational and you're like, it's motivational. Yes, I want to do this. Yes, this is great. It's opening up new doors. And that honeymoon phase ends when it comes to, how do I implement this? No one's talking about how to implement it. They're talking about this very nice, rosy approach to things and solving problems, but it doesn't work in my reality. Where's that missing piece? And that's what was frustrating.
Do you want to tell me about the first time really that you realized that that there was potential to effectively change your career, or adapt your career, or to bring this into your work environment, because a lot of people who do, in my experience anyway, a lot of people who talk a lot are generally they're looking to build that personal profile. They are very often looking for a new role. Um, uh, you're kind of a rare um, person in that it's not driven really by those either of those things specifically. So tell me about the first time that it opened up opportunities for you, and then what happened after that.
Yeah, so I think the speaking circuit started first when I was at Cisco. Um, through actually Cisco had partnerships with various companies, and it wasn't just me. We had a partnership with BT, and I remember that well, where they put a series of sort of master classes together, where we deliver to in partnership with BT to small businesses. Um, and it wasn't just me. There's a whole series of people that delivered presentations within the organization. It was something they facilitated. Um, and I think that was the first moment to see how you as an individual contributor in the business can represent the brand in a public domain for the benefit of the brand, right? Now, why were we delivering these masterclasses to the public? We were delivering these masterclasses so that people would trust the brand and then eventually become customers of the brand. So I think that was the first trigger moment. But since then, what I've seen through many of the engagements that I've had, it's you know it's led to so much recognition of the brand being the brand that I'm working for right now in the energy Eon. We talk about the brand being a disruptor, but you need to show that, right? Um, and I think I told you a story once before where when I first started at Eon Next, and we started as a startup, we're trying to disrupt the energy space in the status quo and try and do things differently. I used to use fintech as an example, as a reference point. So look how the banking industry, which, 15, 20 years ago, you would have never dreamed that they would be able to innovate to the level that they have. Just purely because of the regulations, the risk averse of dealing with financials, and how do you even communicate to customers that now we're going to be a little bit edgy and a little bit different, and actually, you know, the the 10-step process to actually engage with your bank is now going to be a 2-step process, because suddenly you think, okay, I don't trust this bank anymore, right? There was always a level of acceptance. Yes, I need to go through all of these protocols, but it's a bank and they got my money, so I'll do it. To even dream that banking would go to where it is now, was unbelievable. And I used to use that as a reference point for energy. So we could do something similar, right? We could break boundaries here. And through all the work that we've done, and so that thread of fintech has always been that benchmark. Through the work that we've done, then, is reached a point where I've now been invited to go and talk to the fintech community, because now they're looking at us as a growth strategy and a use case. And I think that just shows you the impact, right? If you think or if you want to create impact, if you think that you're a thought leader in your space, if you want to disrupt an industry, you've got to do more than just say it. You've got to show it. And I think through a lot of the engagements that I've had and created some of that recognition, it's led to a situation where fintech are saying, "Come on over," right? We've done London Tech Week. I done a session there at London Tech Week, which was huge. I mean, Rishi Sunak gave a keynote. I was on shortly after that. I was like, this is incredible. Had a piece in the Financial Times talking about some of the capabilities that we're doing. Now, imagine a brand trying to promote their services in the Financial Times. You're talking about a lot of money. And even then, it's a paid placement. People know it's a paid placement. Now, substitute that for an organic one-to-one interview with someone from the brand talking about the impact. I mean, that's going to land so much better.
Looking back at that journey, what do you wish you'd known? What's one thing you would do differently, or wish you'd known earlier?
Absolutely nothing. Because, and this isn't, foreplay arrogance or anything. Even if my career had taken a different path, I wouldn't have changed it, because you live and die by your sword, right? And going back to some of the things I mentioned earlier about trying not to look back, I'd never have that mindset of, "Oh, if I could have changed that." Regret is probably one of the biggest drivers of anxiety and stress. Honestly, it's and different people are programmed differently. But I think my family upbringing, my mom is a very strong woman. If I go to my mom and say I have a problem, um, she wouldn't have much time for listening to the problem. It would always be like, okay, what are you going to do about it? Don't come to me with a problem. What are you going to do about it, right? I think that's been drilled in from a young age. It's never to kind of look back and analyze and there's a time and place for that for sure. I just don't think I'm there yet to look back and analyze what could have been done differently. I think for me, it's about on to the next one. And then again, just trying to tie back to some of the things mentioned earlier to keep that consistency. I believe my superpower is always to look forward.
I'm going to move on to our final question. It's a bit of a closing tradition for us. It's called B2B Buzzword Bingo. So what's one buzzword that's overused or trend that's overhyped in B2B digital right now that you wish would disappear, and why?
I mean, I don't know if I want it to disappear, but I think, or I wish we would have more care using this buzzword. And it definitely is a buzzword right now. And it might not be a surprise to people, but it's AI. And the reason why I wish we would take more care about AI, using the word AI, is because it is the biggest trend. It's been the biggest trend of a generation. But I think people are trying to shoehorn it in places where it probably doesn't fit. And that will show up to customers. That will show up to customers when you're not authentic and you're trying to shoehorn. We've never been in a situation where we've said, we've got a technology and we're going to make that technology work for customers until it's AI. It's always working backwards from the customer. What does the customer need? The problem. And then let's try and solve that problem with whatever technology that best solves it. But with AI, it's almost like the market and the expectation is moving so far and so fast that we've had to keep up. And in order to keep up and to show that we're AI businesses and organizations, we've tried to shoehorn in things. And sometimes we're tagging AI onto a solution where it's not really AI. The AI benefit is very minimal. You could use a service or a product without the AI added on, and it will work exactly, absolutely fine. So I think we should take a lot more care in terms of how we brand the word AI around, so that we don't dilute it, and so we don't create an experience for customers where it's like, oh, it's AI again, because we're diluting the experience and the quality of AI. That it's slowly eroding the overall benefit that you could unlock. And I don't think many people are really truly unlocking the power and the value of AI. So that would be my buzzword that I'd like to take more care with.
Very good. So no more AI. I don't think it's ever going to happen, to be honest. But no more AI. Anyway, Abdul, fantastic. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I've actually found it quite inspirational. I think what you're doing is really interesting. I think there are lots of brands, lots of people could learn from the way you do it, and certainly the way you approach it. I think, which is this sort of always looking forward, is fantastic. And you can pass on my thanks to your mother for that. But no, great conversation. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then please don't forget to hit subscribe and to share it with your network. And if you'd like to find out more about how Big Light helps its clients discover the needs of their customers and deliver experiences that meet them, then check out our website or follow us on LinkedIn. And I'll see you next time.